Hey guys, tonight we wander back to a time of flickering gaslight and thick, rolling mist, exploring the quiet, hidden corners of a city that never truly slept, but only rested for a few brief hours. You find yourself in Victorian London, a place of deep shadows and soft, golden light. You probably believe this era was all about grand balls, fancy top hats, and elegant tea parties in high, ceilinged parlors, but for many, it was defined by the simple, repetitive task of making a tiny flame. It was a world of manual labor that moved to the rhythm of the clock and the season. Before you get too comfortable and possibly fall asleep halfway through, tap like and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy this odd mix of boredom and history. It keeps the channel alive and the stories just sleepy enough to help you drift off again next time. Now dim the lights, let the world outside grow quiet, and turn on a fan if you like that soft, steady hum in the background. Let your shoulders loosen and your breathing slow. This is your time to drift. No rush, no deadlines, no noise. Just you, a little warmth in the air, and the faint whisper of history waiting to unfold. So, settle in, and let's ease gently into tonight's journey together. The room where you wake up is small and very quiet. The air is cool against your skin, and the light coming through the single, narrow window is a soft, muted gray. It is the color of the early morning, before the sun has decided to show its face. You lie there for a moment, feeling the weight of the thin wool blanket. It is not a heavy blanket, but it is enough to keep the chill of the night away from your bones. You listen to the silence of the house. Somewhere, far away, you hear the distant sound of a horse's hooves moving slowly over the damp cobblestones. It is a rhythmic sound, steady and calm, like a heartbeat for the city. You sit up slowly. Your movements are careful and deliberate. There is no need to hurry yet. You feel the floorboards beneath your feet. They are cold and slightly rough, worn smooth by years of footsteps. You reach for your clothes, which are piled neatly on a wooden chair. The fabric is thick and a bit coarse, a simple cotton dress and a heavy shawl that has seen better days. You pull the shawl around your shoulders, and the warmth of the fabric is a small comfort. It smells faintly of wood smoke and the damp London air. As you dress, you think about the day ahead. You are a Matchstick girl, one of the many young women who walk to the Bryant and May factory in the East End every single morning. It is a long walk, but it is a familiar one. You know every crack in the pavement and every turn in the narrow alleys. You pour a little water from a ceramic pitcher into a bowl. The water is cold, and as you splash it onto your face, you feel wide awake, but in a gentle way. The coldness clears the lingering fog of sleep from your mind. You leave the room and descend the narrow stairs. They creak softly under your weight, a familiar song that the house sings every morning. You step out of the front door and into the London mist. The air is thick and tastes of coal smoke and river water. This is the famous London fog, what people sometimes call a pea-souper because of its thick, yellowish hue. Historians still argue whether the density of the fog was truly as thick as the literature suggests, or if the accounts were slightly exaggerated for dramatic effect. To you, however, it feels very real. It wraps around you like a wet blanket, muffling the sounds of the waking city. The street is narrow, and the buildings rise up on either side like silent giants. Most of the windows are dark, but here and there, A faint yellow glow indicates that someone else is beginning their day. You walk with a steady pace. Your boots make a dull, rhythmic sound on the stones. You see a lamplighter in the distance, his long pole reaching up to extinguish the gas lamps. Now that the dawn is beginning to break, the light from the lamps flickers and then vanishes, leaving only the gray, natural light of the morning. You pass by a small shop that sells bread. The smell is wonderful, warm, yeasty, and inviting. You don't stop, but you breathe in the scent deeply. It is a small highlight in your morning routine. Further down the road, you see a group of men gathered around a small fire in a metal drum. They are waiting for work at the docks. Their faces are shadows in the mist, and the orange glow of the fire reflects in the damp patches on the ground. The world feels very old and very still. The walk takes you through different neighborhoods. Some are quiet and residential, where the houses are tall and made of dark red brick. Others are more crowded, with narrow alleys and laundry hanging between the buildings. Even in this damp weather, you cross a small bridge over a canal. The water below is still and dark, reflecting the gray sky like a mirror. A single barge is tied to the side, its wooden hull looking ancient and heavy. There is a quirky tidbit of history that many people forget. In this era, the water in the canals was often cleaner than the water in the city pipes, though neither would be considered safe by your modern standards. As you get closer to the factory, the air changes. It begins to smell different, not just of coal and mist, but of something sharper, something chemical. It is the smell of phosphorus. It is a scent you have grown used to, though it is never pleasant. It is a bit like garlic, but heavier and more metallic. You see other girls now, walking from different directions. They are all like you, wrapped in shawls, their heads down, their feet moving in that same steady rhythm. No one speaks. It is too early for conversation, and the damp air seems to swallow any sound before it can travel very far. You arrive at the gates of the Bryant and May factory. It is a massive building, a fortress of industry. The red bricks are stained with the soot of many years. You join the line of girls at the entrance. The factory is a place of absolute order. You are expected to work for 14 hours a day, a mainstream fact that many find hard to believe in a world of 8-hour shifts. But here, the day is measured by the number of matches produced, not by the sun. You step inside, and the temperature rises. The air inside the factory is warm and very humid. It feels thick in your lungs. You walk to your station in the dipping room. The room is long and filled with large vats. These vats are full of a thick, colorful paste. Some of it is red, some of it is yellow, and it is all very bright against the gray walls of the factory. This paste contains the phosphorus that will allow the matches to strike. There is a strange beauty in the way the light catches the surface of the chemicals. It shimmers and glows. In fact, some of the workers notice that their clothes and even their hair seem to glow in the dark after a long day of work. They call it the devil's light, a quirky detail that adds a touch of mystery to a very difficult job. You find your place at the long wooden table. Your hands are ready. You know exactly what to do. The process is mechanical and soothing in its repetition. You pick up a frame filled with thin wooden splints. These splints are made of pine, soft and light. You hold the frame firmly and dip the ends of the splints into the vat of phosphorus paste. You do it with a smooth, downward motion. You lift them out, and the tips are now coated in a bright, wet glob of color. You set the frame aside to dry and pick up the next one. Dip, lift, set aside. Dip, lift, set aside. The sound of the factory begins to fill your ears. It is not a loud noise, but a constant one. It is the sound of hundreds of frames being moved, the soft splashing of the paste, and the low hum of the drying fans. It is a hypnotic sound. It is easy to let your mind wander while your hands do the work. You think about the mist outside and how it is slowly lifting to reveal the city. You think about the tea you will have later, warm and sweet with a little bit of milk. The dipping room is where the most dangerous work happens, but right now, it just feels like a place of quiet focus. You watch the girls next to you. They move with the same rhythm. We are all like parts of a large, slow-moving machine. The air stays heavy, and the smell of phosphorus is everywhere now, but you focus on the wood in your hands. You feel the texture of the pine, the slight roughness of the splints. You feel the weight of the frame. The phosphorus paste is a mixture of many things: glue, chlorate of potash, and the phosphorus itself. It is thick and sticky. You have to be careful not to get it on your skin, but it is almost impossible to stay completely clean. By the end of the hour, there are small spots of yellow on your apron. You don't mind. It is just part of the job. You continue your work, your arms moving back and forth, back and forth. Historians still argue whether the management of these factories was intentionally cruel or simply a product of the economic theories of the time. Regardless of the debate, the reality for you is the frame in your hand and the vat in front of you. You are part of a massive industry that provides light to the world. Every match you dip will eventually end up in a kitchen, a parlor, or a street lamp. You are making the tools that keep the darkness at bay. The morning hours pass slowly. The light from the high windows changes from gray to a pale, watery yellow. You can see dust motes dancing in the beams of light. They swirl and spin in the humid air, moving in slow, lazy circles. You watch them for a moment, fascinated by their simple, aimless movement. They don't have anywhere to be. They just exist in the light. You feel a slight ache in your shoulders, but it is a familiar ache. You shift your weight from one foot to the other. The floor is covered in a fine layer of sawdust, which helps to soak up any spills. It feels soft under your boots. You take a deep breath, and though the air is heavy, it feels grounding. You are here, you are working, and the world is moving forward. There is a sense of community in the silence of the dipping room. Even though no one is talking, you feel the presence of the other girls. You are all sharing this experience, this long, slow morning. You see the way the girl across from you brushes a stray hair from her forehead with the back of her hand. You see the way another girl pauses for a second to stretch her neck. These are small, human moments in the middle of the industrial routine. The frames are stacking up now, rows and rows of matches waiting to dry. They look like a tiny, colorful forest. You think about where the wood came from, perhaps from a forest far away, where the air is clear and the trees are tall. Now, those trees have been turned into millions of tiny sticks, all destined to be burned for a few seconds of light. It is a strange thought, but a peaceful one. You continue to dip. The rhythm is your friend. It keeps you from getting tired. It keeps your mind calm. You focus on the color of the paste. It is a very specific shade of red, almost like a ripe berry. You watch as the wood absorbs some of the moisture, the tip of the match becoming solid and firm. Outside, the city of London is now fully awake. The sounds of traffic, carriages, carts, and shouting vendors filter through the thick brick walls of the factory. They sound distant, like a dream. Inside the dipping room, the world is contained and predictable. There are no surprises here. There is only the work. As the first section of your day comes to a close, you feel a sense of accomplishment. You have processed hundreds of frames. You have contributed to the mountain of matches that the factory produces every day. Your hands are steady, and your mind is quiet. The mist of the morning has been replaced by the steady, warm humidity of the factory, and you are ready for whatever comes next. You take one last look at the vat of phosphorus. It looks still and deep. You set down your last frame for this period and take a moment to simply breathe. You can feel the heartbeat of the factory in the floorboards. It is a slow, pulsing vibration. It is the sound of industry, the sound of progress, and for now, it is the sound that lulls you into a state of calm, focused peace. The transition from the cool, misty streets to this warm, rhythmic interior has been seamless. You are no longer just a person walking through a city. You are a vital part of a process. You are the Matchstick girl, and your day has only just begun. You feel the shawl still draped around your waist, a reminder of the cold morning you left behind. Now, the warmth of the room is your constant companion. You look at your hands. They are stained, but they are strong. They know their task. You feel a sense of pride in that knowledge. You don't need to think about what to do. Your body simply knows. This is the beauty of the monotony. It allows you to exist in a space between waking and dreaming, where the only thing that matters is the next frame, the next dip, and the next match. The air remains still, and the light continues its slow crawl across the floor. You are settled. You are part of the history of this place, a quiet figure in a grand story of light and shadow. You let the feeling of the factory wrap around you, and for a moment, everything is exactly as it should be. The dipping room is a vast, echoing space where the heart of the factory beats most rhythmically. You find yourself standing before a long table, and in front of you sits a large, shallow vat filled with a thick, viscous liquid. This is the phosphorus paste, the magical and slightly temperamental substance that gives the match its life. The color is a deep, earthy red, almost like the clay found in a river bed, but it has a strange, pearlescent shimmer that catches the light from the high, soot-streaked windows. You watch as a single bubble rises slowly to the surface of the paste, stretching the thick liquid until it finally pops with a soft, silent movement. The surface settles back into a perfect, glassy stillness. You reach for a wooden frame. It is a sturdy object, made of dark oak, and heavy enough to feel substantial in your hands. This frame holds hundreds of tiny wooden splints, each one perfectly aligned and spaced just a few millimeters apart. You run your thumb over the ends of the wood. They are dry and slightly fuzzy to the touch, waiting for their coating. There is a mainstream historical fact that many people forget. These splints were often made from Canadian pine, imported specifically because of its straight grain and ability to burn with a steady, predictable flame. You feel the history of those distant forests in the grain of the wood against your skin. The motion of dipping is something you could do in your sleep, and indeed, the repetitive nature of it makes you feel as though you are dreaming while awake. You hold the frame by its side handles, your fingers curling around the smooth, worn wood. You lift it slightly, feeling the weight and balance of the object. Then, with a slow and steady motion, you lower the frame toward the vat. You watch as the bottom of the wooden splints meets the surface of the red paste. There is no splash, only a gentle parting of the liquid as the wood sinks in. You submerge them just a few inches, ensuring each tiny stick receives a uniform coat. Historians still argue whether the specific recipe for this paste was a closely guarded secret of the factory owners, or if the basic components were common knowledge across the entire industry. Regardless of the academic debate for you, the paste is simply the reality of your day. You lift the frame out of the liquid. The red paste clings to the wood, forming a perfect, rounded droplet on the end of each splint. It is a deep, rich color, and it looks almost like a row of tiny, wet berries. You hold the frame over the vat for a moment, letting any excess liquid drip back into the pool. You watch the drops fall, one by one, creating small, concentric circles that ripple outward across the surface of the vat. You move the frame to a drying rack behind you. This rack is made of iron and stands tall and silent, like a skeletal tree. You slide the frame into a narrow slot, and it fits with a satisfying, muffled thud. The wood of the rack is warm from the heat of the room. You can feel that warmth radiating toward you, a gentle pressure against your back. You turn back to the table and reach for the next frame. The process begins again. Lift, lower, dip, lift, and rack. It is a cycle that has no beginning and no end, only a continuous flow of movement. The air in the dipping room is thick and humid. The heat comes from the large stoves used to keep the phosphorus paste at the correct temperature and consistency. If it gets too cold, it becomes too thick to coat the wood properly. If it gets too hot, it becomes dangerous and unpredictable. You feel the humidity on your skin, a soft, damp veil that makes the air feel heavy and slow. It is the kind of heat that doesn't burn, but rather wraps around you, encouraging your muscles to loosen and your mind to drift. You breathe in slowly, and though the scent of the phosphorus is sharp, it has become a background element of your existence, like the sound of the wind or the ticking of a clock. There is a quirky tidbit of history regarding the Phossy jaw that would eventually become synonymous with this work. In these early years, workers often noticed a faint, greenish glow on their hands and clothes when they walked home in the dark. Some even said their breath seemed to shimmer in the night air. At the time, this was often viewed with a sense of wonder or mild amusement, rather than fear. You look down at your own hands. There are small flecks of the paste on your skin, and you notice how they seem to catch the light in a way that ordinary dirt does not. They have a subtle, metallic luster, like the wings of a beetle. You continue your work, the frames moving from the table to the rack in a steady, unwavering stream. Your arms move with a grace that only comes from thousands of repetitions. There is a beauty in this level of mastery. You don't have to think about the depth of the dip or the speed of the lift. Your body has memorized the physics of the liquid and the weight of the wood. This allows your thoughts to wander far beyond the walls of the factory. You imagine you are standing by a calm lake at sunset, watching the water turn the same deep red as the paste in your vat. You imagine the trees on the far shore, their branches perfectly still in the quiet evening air. The sound of the room is a low, rhythmic hum. It is the sound of other girls moving their frames, the soft shuffle of boots on the sawdust covered floor, and the occasional creak of the iron racks as they expand in the heat. It is a peaceful sound, a tapestry of industry that feels more like a lullaby than a workplace. You find yourself matching your breathing to the rhythm of your movements. Inhale as you lift the frame. Exhale as you lower it into the vat. Inhale as you move to the rack. Exhale as you return to the table. This synchronization creates a sense of profound calm, as if you are a single instrument in a large, quiet orchestra. The light in the room is soft and filtered. The dust motes continue their slow dance, drifting through the air like tiny, golden spirits. They seem to be unaffected by the heat or the humidity, moving in their own silent world. You watch one particularly bright mote as it descends toward the vat. It hovers for a second above the red surface before being swept away by a tiny current of air. The world outside the factory, the noise of London, the rush of the crowds, the pressure of time, feels very far away. Here, time is measured only by the drying of the paste and the filling of the racks. As you work, you notice the subtle variations in the wood. Some splints are lighter in color, others have a slightly rougher texture. You treat each frame with the same care, ensuring the phosphorus is applied evenly. You are a craftsman of the mundane, a creator of a tool that is so common it is often overlooked. But you know the importance of your task. A poorly dipped match is a frustration to the person trying to light a stove in a cold kitchen or a lamp in a dark hallway. You take a quiet pride in the perfection of your work. Every frame you finish is a testament to your focus and your patience. The humidity in the room seems to grow as the morning progresses. You feel a bead of perspiration roll slowly down your temple. It is a cool sensation against your warm skin. You don't brush it away, you let it follow its path, a tiny, physical reminder of the energy you are putting into your work. The steam rising from the vats creates a slight haze in the air, softening the edges of the room. The other girls look like figures in a painting, their movements blurred and graceful in the misty light. No one speaks, but there is a shared understanding in the air. You are all part of this humid, red-tinted world. You think about the history of the match itself. Before this, people used tinderboxes and flint, a clumsy and often difficult way to create fire. The friction match changed everything. It brought the power of fire into the hands of everyone, making life a little bit easier and a little bit brighter. You are a small but essential part of that revolution. You are the one who applies the spark, making element to the wood. It is a thought that brings a quiet sense of satisfaction. You are not just dipping sticks, you are helping to light up the world, one box at a time. The vat of paste is like a living thing. It requires constant attention to keep it at the right level. Every so often, a supervisor comes by with a large pitcher of fresh paste, pouring it slowly into the vat. You watch as the new liquid merges with the old, a swirling dance of red and crimson until the surface becomes uniform once again. The smell intensifies for a moment, a sharp, garlicky tang that clears your senses before fading back into the general atmosphere of the room. You nod to the supervisor, a silent acknowledgement of the replenishment, and then return to your rhythm. You find yourself focusing on the texture of the dried matches on the racks. As they dry, the color shifts from a wet, bright red to a matte, deeper shade. They lose their shimmer and become solid and functional. You like this transformation. It is a sign of progress, a visual representation of the time passing. You can look at a rack and know exactly how long ago those matches were dipped based on the exact shade of their tips. It is a specialized knowledge, a secret language shared only by those who work in this room. The physical sensation of the work is soothing. The repetitive motion of your arms and shoulders acts as a form of light exercise, keeping your blood flowing and your body warm. You feel a sense of strength in your movements. You are young and capable, and your body is perfectly suited to this task. The ache in your muscles is not a sharp pain, but a dull, comfortable tiredness that speaks of a productive day. You embrace the feeling, letting it ground you in the present moment. There is nowhere else you need to be, and nothing else you need to do. But this. Historians still argue whether the ventilation in these factories was truly as poor as later reformers claimed, or if the technology of the time simply didn't allow for better air circulation. In your world, the stillness of the air is just another part of the environment. It doesn't feel oppressive, it feels protective. The thick air holds the warmth and the rhythm of the room, creating a cocoon, like atmosphere that shields you from the chaotic world outside. You feel safe within the walls of the factory, a quiet inhabitant of this industrial sanctuary. You reach for another frame. This one is particularly heavy, the wood dense and dark. You adjust your grip, feeling the balance shift. You dip it with extra care, making sure the thick paste reaches every single splint. You watch as the liquid rises up the wood, a perfect, even line. You lift it, wait for the drip, and then place it in the rack. The movement is so fluid it feels like a dance. You are the conductor of your own small space, directing the flow of materials with a silent, steady hand. The repetitive nature of the work allows you to enter a state of deep meditation. You are aware of everything around you, the light, the heat, the smell, the sounds. But you are not distracted by any of it. Everything is integrated into a single, cohesive experience. You feel a sense of peace that is rare in the bustling city of London. Here, in the heart of the dipping room, everything is orderly and predictable. There is a great comfort in that predictability. You know exactly what the next hour will hold, and the hour after that. You think about the journey of the match. Once it leaves your hands, it will be boxed, shipped, and sold in a small shop somewhere. Perhaps it will be bought by a poet who uses it to light a candle late at night while he writes, or perhaps by a cook who uses it to start the morning fire in a grand house. You imagine these scenes, visualizing the tiny flame you helped create, bringing light and warmth to people you will never meet. It is a way of connecting with the world without ever having to leave your station. The morning light has moved across the floor, and it now illuminates the sawdust at your feet. You can see individual grains of wood and the small, red stains where the paste has dripped. You realize that the floor itself is a history of the day's work, a map of every frame dipped and every movement made. You add to that map with a small, intentional drip, a tiny mark of your presence. It is a small act of rebellion against the absolute order of the factory, a way of saying that you were here. As you finish the last frame of this cycle, you take a moment to look around the room. The racks are nearly full, a forest of red, tipped wood standing in the dim light. The vats are still, their surfaces reflecting the high windows. The air is warm and heavy, filled with the essence of the work. You feel a deep sense of calm, a quiet satisfaction that comes from a job well done. You have maintained your rhythm, you have stayed focused, and you have contributed your part to the day. Your arms feel heavy, but good. You stretch them slowly, feeling the muscles pull, and then relax. You take a deep breath, savoring the warmth of the room one last time before the next phase of the day begins. You are the Matchstick girl, and you have mastered the rhythm of the dipping room. The world of light and shadow continues to turn, and you are right there with it, moving in perfect, sleepy harmony. The air changes as you move deeper into the heart of the factory, toward the massive drying racks. If the dipping room was a place of liquid motion, this area is a place of profound, heavy stillness. The heat here is different. It is a dry, radiating warmth that seems to push against you from all sides. You carry your latest frame of matches, holding it carefully by the edges so as not to disturb the wet, red tips. As you walk, you notice how the light from the high, narrow windows seems to warp and bend. This is the heat shimmer, a gentle waving of the air that makes the far end of the hall look like it is underwater. It is a slow, rhythmic distortion, like the world is breathing in and out through the warmth. You find your assigned rack, a towering structure of iron and wood that reaches toward the ceiling. You slide your frame into its designated slot. It fits perfectly, joining thousands of other matches in a silent, orderly display. There is a mainstream historical fact that many people overlook. The drying process was perhaps the most critical stage of production. If the matches dried too quickly, the phosphorus could crack and become unstable. If they dried too slowly, the wood might warp, making them impossible to fit into their boxes. You are a guardian of this balance, ensuring that each little stick has the space and time it needs to become a finished tool of light. You stand there for a moment, simply watching. The racks are filled with rows upon rows of matches, their red heads glowing in the dim light. They look like a vast, silent audience waiting for a performance that never begins. The heat is consistent, a steady pulse that comes from the massive stoves, located at the far end of the hall. You feel the warmth soaking into your skin, loosening the muscles in your shoulders and back. It is a comfortable sensation, almost like being wrapped in a thick, dry blanket on a cold winter day. Paradoxically, the very heat that makes the air feel so heavy is also what makes this part of the factory feel so peaceful. Historians still argue whether the ventilation systems in these drying rooms were intentionally kept minimal to maintain the high temperatures required for production, or if the architects simply didn't understand the importance of airflow for the health of the workers. From your perspective, the stillness of the air is just a fact of life. It creates a pocket of quiet in a busy world. You can hear the distant, muffled sounds of the rest of the factory, the clatter of machinery, the shuffle of feet. But here, everything is muted by the heat. It is a sanctuary of industry, a place where time seems to slow down to match the slow evaporation of moisture from the wood. There is a quirky tidbit of history that often brings a small smile to your face. In the colder months, the girls from other departments would often find excuses to walk through the drying room, just to catch a few moments of the intense warmth. They called it the summer room, a tiny, artificial escape from the biting London frost. You watch a stray thread on your sleeve dance in a tiny updraft of warm air. It moves with a delicate, aimless grace, rising and falling in a silent bollet. You follow its movement with your eyes, letting your mind drift along with it. You notice the way the light catches the drying phosphorus. As the moisture leaves the paste, the color begins to shift. It loses that wet, berry-like shine and takes on a more matte, solid appearance. It turns from a bright crimson to a deep, earthy brick red. You can actually see the progress of the drying by looking at the gradient of color across the rack. The matches near the top, where the air is hottest, are already turning dark, while the ones near the bottom still have a faint, liquid glint. It is a slow motion transformation, a tiny piece of alchemy that happens thousands of times every hour. The smell here is also different. The sharp, garlicky scent of the wet phosphorus has mellowed into something more subtle, mixed with the toasted, resinous smell of drying pine. It is an earthy, almost pleasant aroma, reminiscent of a campfire that has burned down to its last embers. You breathe it in slowly, feeling the warmth of the air deep in your lungs. The humidity is lower here than in the dipping room, making the air feel lighter, even though it is hotter. You find yourself leaning slightly against the cool brick of a nearby pillar, taking a moment to simply exist in this warm, golden space. You think about the wood once more. These tiny splints were once part of a living tree, swaying in the wind and drinking in the rain. Now, they are being baked in the heart of London, prepared for their final purpose. There is a strange, quiet dignity in this transition. You feel a connection to these objects, a sense of responsibility for their journey. You move down the row, checking the frames with a practiced eye. You aren't looking for major problems. You are looking for the small, nearly invisible signs of a perfect dry. You run the back of your hand near the frames, feeling the radiant heat. If it feels too hot, you might shift a frame to a lower slot. If too cool, you move it higher. There is a rhythm even in the waiting. You move with a slow, deliberate pace, your boots making a soft thump on the wooden floor. Every step is measured, every movement is calm. You are not in a hurry. The heat doesn't allow for hurry. It demands a slow, steady approach to everything. You watch the heat shimmer again, focusing on a distant rack. The air seems to ripple like the surface of a pond, blurring the lines of the iron frames and the wooden splints. It is hypnotic, a visual lullaby that encourages your thoughts to spiral inward. You imagine the world outside the factory walls. The fog has likely cleared by now, replaced by the pale, weak sunlight of a London afternoon. The streets will be crowded with people in a rush, their faces set in expressions of worry or determination. But here, in the drying room, there is no rush. There is only the steady application of heat and the slow passage of time. You feel a sense of detachment from the chaos of the city. You are in a different world, a world of red and gold and quiet warmth. As you stand there, you notice a small detail you hadn't seen before. A tiny spider has spun a web between two of the iron bars on a distant, empty rack. The web is nearly invisible in the dim light, but it catches a stray beam of sun, glowing like a silver thread. The spider is perfectly still, waiting with the same patience that you are. It is a fellow inhabitant of this quiet space, a tiny worker in its own right. You admire the intricacy of the web, the way it uses the geometry of the rack to create something delicate and functional. It is a small reminder that even in a place of mass production, there is room for the individual and the unique. The phosphorus continues its slow change. You reach out and very gently touch the side of one of the wooden frames. The wood is warm to the touch, almost hot. You can feel the energy of the stove being stored in the grain of the pine. It feels solid and reliable. You think about the devil's light. Again, the way the phosphorus would glow in the dark. In this room, when the sun goes down and the lamps are low, the racks are said to give off a soft, ghostly radiance. It is not a frightening glow, but a gentle one, like the light of a firefly. It is a quirky detail that makes the factory feel like a place of hidden magic. You shift your weight, feeling the floorboards creak softly under your boots. The sound is low and resonant, echoing slightly in the large space. It is a comforting sound, a reminder of the solid foundation beneath you. You look up at the ceiling, where the rafters are lost in the shadows. The heat rises and gathers there, creating a reservoir of warmth that keeps the room consistent. You feel like you are standing at the bottom of a warm ocean, with currents of heat swirling around you in slow, lazy circles. Historians still argue whether the physical toll on the Matchstick girls was understood by the factory owners during this period. Some believe the owners were aware of the risks, but chose to ignore them for profit, while others suggest that the scientific understanding of phosphorus was still in its infancy. For you, the debate is secondary to the immediate sensation of the warmth and the work. You focus on the present, on the feeling of the dry air and the sight of the glowing matches. You are part of a moment in history, a single thread in a much larger tapestry. You find yourself falling into a light trance, the heat and the silence acting as a powerful sedative. Your breathing is deep and regular. Your heart beats with a slow, steady rhythm. You are completely relaxed, yet perfectly aware of your surroundings. This is the beauty of the drying room. It is a place where you can lose yourself in the monotony, where the boundaries between you and the work begin to blur. You are the warmth, you are the wood, you are the slow change of the red paste. A fly buzzes past your ear, its wings creating a tiny, rhythmic hum. It circles once, twice, and then disappears into the shadows of the racks. The sound is a brief interruption in the silence, a small ripple in the still air. You watch the dust motes again. Their dance more languid here in the heat. They move like they are swimming through honey, their golden bodies shimmering in the light. Everything in this room is slow. Everything is patient. You think about the afternoon tea that will come later. It will be a simple meal, a crust of bread, perhaps a small piece of cheese, and the tea itself. You imagine the warmth of the mug in your hands, the steam rising to meet your face. It will be a different kind of warmth than the heat of this room, a more personal, nourishing warmth. The thought is a pleasant one, a small light at the end of the day's work. But for now, you are happy to stay here, in the golden haze of the drying room. The sun has moved further across the sky, and the angle of the light through the windows has changed. The long shadows of the racks now stretch across the floor, creating a pattern of dark and light lines. You follow one of these lines with your eyes, tracing it from the base of the rack all the way to the far wall. The geometry of the room is pleasing, a series of repetitions and symmetries that soothe the mind. You feel a sense of order and balance, a feeling that everything is in its proper place. You take a slow walk down the length of the hall, your movements fluid and graceful. The air seems to part before you, closing back up behind you like water. You pass rack after rack of matches, each one a silent testament to the day's labor. You feel a sense of pride in the sheer volume of the work. Thousands, tens of thousands of matches, all drying perfectly under your watchful eye. You are the silent overseer of this quiet process, the one who ensures that the light of the future is prepared with care. As you reach the far end of the room, near the stoves, the heat becomes even more intense. It is a powerful, vibrant force. You can feel it vibrating in the air, a low-frequency hum that you feel in your chest more than you hear with your ears. You stand there for a moment, basking in the raw energy of the fire. It is the heart of the factory, the source of the warmth that drives the entire process. You feel a sense of awe at the power of it, a small human figure standing before a great industrial force. Then you turn and begin the slow walk back. The heat at your back is like a gentle hand, pushing you forward. You move back toward the more temperate areas, the transition feeling like a cool breeze. You return to your station, your mind clear and your body relaxed. The drying process is well underway, and your work here is almost done for this cycle. You take one last look at the heat shimmer, the waving air making the world look soft and dreamlike. The room remains still. The matches continue to dry. The light continues to fade. You are the matchstick girl, and you have found peace in the heart of the heat. You are ready for the next step, for the transition from the warmth of the drying racks to the rhythmic monotony of the packing table. But for now, you simply breathe. You breathe in the warm, toasted air, and you let the quiet energy of the factory fill your soul. You are settled, you are calm, and you are exactly where you are meant to be. The world outside may be cold and fast, but here, everything is warm and slow. You let your eyelids droop for a second, savoring the darkness and the warmth. Then you open them again, your focus returning to the rows of red, tipped wood. You are a part of the history of light, a quiet worker in the service of the flame. And as the day moves forward, you move with it, a steady, rhythmic presence in the golden glow of the drying room. The transition from the intense, radiating heat of the drying racks to the packing room is like stepping from a midsummer afternoon into the cool, shaded porch of a house. You feel the temperature drop just enough to be refreshing, though the air here remains heavy with the scent of pine, and that ever-present, garlicky tang of phosphorus. You walk toward a long, low table that stretches almost the entire length of the room. This is your new world, a world of organized piles, colorful labels, and the endless, rhythmic sliding of wood against paper. You take your seat on a small, wooden stool. It is a humble piece of furniture, worn smooth by the many girls who sat here before you, and it has a slight, familiar wobble that you've learned to balance with the weight of your own body. In front of you lies a mountain of matches. They have been brought from the drying racks and emptied onto the table in a vast, chaotic heap. They look like a pile of fallen needles from some strange, red-tipped pine tree. Beside the matches are the boxes, hundreds of them, stacked in neat, vertical columns that look like miniature skyscrapers. There is a mainstream historical fact that often surprises people. The factory didn't actually make most of these boxes on site. Instead, they were made by outworkers, often entire families working in their own cramped kitchens nearby, folding and gluing the wood and paper for a few pennies a gross. You pick up one of the empty sleeves. It is light, almost weightless, and smells faintly of the rye, flour paste used to hold it together. You begin the work. Your hands move with a precision that feels almost independent of your mind. You reach into the pile of matches, your fingers spreading out to gather a bundle. Exactly enough to fill a box, not one match too many and not one too few. You don't need to count them. Your hand simply knows the feeling of the correct volume. You align the matches so their red heads are all facing the same direction, a process that requires a gentle, shaking motion of the wrist. Historians still argue whether this piece, rate-pay system, where you are paid for every finished gross of boxes rather than by the hour, was a clever way to encourage extreme efficiency or a calculated method to keep wages as low as possible. For you, the debate is just a background hum to the reality of the work. You slide the bundle into the drawer, and then slide the drawer into the sleeve. The sound of this process is a soft, dry whisper. Slide, click, stack. It is a repetitive melody that fills the room, created by dozens of girls all performing the same motion at different tempos. It is a hypnotic sound, like the rustling of dry leaves in a gentle wind. You find yourself matching your rhythm to the girl sitting next to you, creating a synchronized beat that makes the time feel like it is folding in on itself. You aren't just a worker. You are a master of the micro movement. You pick, you align, you slide, you stack. Again and again. There is a quirky tidbit of history regarding the labels on these boxes. In this era, the factory owners realized that the box itself was a powerful tool for advertising. The labels are surprisingly vibrant, featuring illustrations of everything from majestic lions and brave soldiers to bizarre, anthropomorphic animals wearing hats. Some labels even feature famous explorers or distant landmarks. You spend a fraction of a second looking at a label of a colorful parrot before it disappears into your stack of finished boxes. It's a tiny, 1-second vacation for your eyes, a splash of color in a world of brown wood and red phosphorus. You wonder who will eventually buy this specific box, and if they will ever look at the parrot as closely as you just did. As you work, a fine dust begins to settle over everything. This is the devil's dust, tiny particles of dried phosphorus and wood fibers that float in the air. In the afternoon light, this dust looks like a shimmering, golden mist. It settles on your apron, your hair, and even your eyelashes. You notice that your fingers have a slight, silvery sheen to them now. It's a bit ironic. Really, you are covered in the very thing that brings light to others, yet here it just feels like a thin, itchy layer of industrial glitter. You don't mind it much. It's just another part of the environment, like the wobble of your stool or the smell of the glue. The physical sensation of the work is very specific. The wood of the matchsticks is smooth and dry, while the paper of the boxes is slightly rough. You feel the friction as the drawer slides into the sleeve. A tiny bit of resistance that disappears as the box closes. It is a very satisfying feeling, a small moment of completion that happens every few seconds. You build your towers of boxes higher and higher. When a stack reaches a certain height, you move it to a large wooden crate on the floor. You do this without even looking, your peripheral vision handling the task, while your main focus stays on the pile of matches. You think about the boring but pleasant nature of this task. It requires just enough attention to keep you from falling off your stool, but not so much that you can't dream. You imagine the boxes being loaded onto carts and taken to the docks, then onto ships that sail to places you've only heard of in stories. Maybe your matches will light a lantern in a jungle or a stove in a snowy mountain cabin. You are a tiny, essential cog in a global machine of fire and light. It's a big thought for such a small object, but it helps the hours pass by. There is a gentle sarcasm in the way the supervisors walk through the room. They carry clipboards and look very serious, as if the fate of the British Empire depends on exactly how many boxes of lucifers are packed before 4 o'clock. You watch one supervisor struggle to balance his hat while leaning over to inspect a crate. You hide a small smile as he nearly trips over a stray bundle of wood. They think they are the ones running the factory, but you know the truth. It's the rhythm of the girls, the collective slide, click, stack, that keeps the heart of the building beating. The room is quieter than the dipping room or the drying area. There is no splashing of liquid or roaring of stoves. The primary sound is the collective movement of hands. Occasionally, someone will drop a box, and the sound of it hitting the floor is like a tiny drum beat. No one looks up. The focus is too deep. You feel a sense of shared purpose with the other girls. You are all part of this long, wooden table, a community of hands moving in the golden, dusty light. Historians still argue whether the boxers were the elite of the factory workers, as their job required the most dexterity and speed, or if they were simply the most exhausted, given the sheer volume they had to process. You certainly feel the dexterity in your fingers. They move like the legs of a fast, running spider, nimble and sure. Your thumb and forefinger have developed small, tough calluses from the repetitive friction of the paper. You treat these calluses like a badge of office. They are what allow you to work at this speed without feeling the sting of the rough cardstock. The sun is beginning to sink lower in the sky, and the light in the packing room is turning a deep honey orange. The shadows of the boxes on the table stretch out, becoming long and thin. They look like the shadows of a miniature city. You find yourself slowing down just a fraction, savoring the way the light makes the red tips of the matches look like they are already glowing. It is a beautiful sight, in a very quiet, industrial way. You take a deep breath, and the air feels a bit cooler now as the day begins to wane. You think about the quirky tidbit that some girls use to put small notes inside the matchboxes, a name, a date, or a tiny drawing, hoping that someone far away would find it. It was a way to send a message into the world, a tiny, "I was here," tucked inside a tool of fire. You don't do this yourself, as you're far too focused on your gross count, but you like the idea of it. It adds a layer of mystery to the boxes. Every box is a little mystery, a little gift of light waiting to be opened. The pile of matches in front of you is finally starting to dwindle. You can see the surface of the wooden table now, scarred with thousands of tiny scratches and old glue stains. It is a map of 1,000 days of work. You reach for the last few matches, feeling a sense of quiet triumph. You have processed your mountain. You have built your skyscrapers. You have filled your crates. Your arms feel a little heavy, a dull ache beginning to settle into your wrists. But it's a good kind of tired. It's the tiredness of a clock that has ticked perfectly all day long. You take a moment to stretch your fingers. You spread them wide, then make a fist, then spread them again. You can feel the skin pulling across your knuckles. The devil's dust shimmers as you move your hands through a beam of light. You look at the towers of boxes you've created. They are perfectly straight, perfectly uniform. There is a great peace in that perfection. In a world that can be messy and unpredictable, these boxes are exactly what they are supposed to be. You hear the distant sound of the factory whistle, a long, low moan that signals the transition to the next part of the day. It isn't time to go home yet, but it's the end of this specific task. You stand up slowly, feeling your knees click. The stool wobbles one last time as you leave it. You look back at your station. The table is clean, the matches are gone, and the boxes are ready for the world. You feel a sense of relief, but also a lingering connection to the rhythm. Your hands still want to move in that pick, align, slide, stack motion. The packing room, with its golden dust and parrot labeled boxes, has been your home for the last several hours. It is a place of quiet, mechanical meditation. As you walk away, your boots making a soft sound on the sawdust, you carry that sense of order with you. The chaos of the mountain of matches has been tamed. You are the matchstick girl, the one who brings the light into its final, perfect home. And as you move toward the next section of your day, you do so with a calm mind and a steady heart, ready for the evening to unfold. You walk past a stack of crates ready for shipping. Each one is stamped with the factory's name in bold, black letters. They look so sturdy and permanent, a stark contrast to the tiny, fragile matches inside them. It's a quirky thought. The strength of the crate protecting the potential of the flame. You run your hand along the rough wood of a crate as you pass, a silent goodbye to the work you've just finished. The air is getting thinner, and the shadows are getting longer, and you are ready to let the rhythm of the day carry you forward. The factory is a place of many sounds and many smells, but the packing room will always be the place of the dry whisper. You can still hear it in the back of your mind, a soothing, repetitive echo. Slide, click, stack. It is a sound that promises a certain kind of safety, the safety of knowing exactly what comes next. You let that sound lull you into a state of even deeper relaxation as you move toward the communal area for your brief rest. Your journey through the day is more than half over, and you are drifting through it with the grace of a swan on a still pond. You feel the weight of the day, but it isn't a burden. It's more like a heavy coat that keeps you warm. You are settled into your role, settled into the history of this place. The matchstick girl is a figure of industry, but she is also a figure of quiet, persistent peace. And in this moment, as the orange light fades to a soft purple, You are simply a part of the stillness. You are ready to rest, ready to dream, and ready for the faint whisper of history to continue its story. You leave the packing table and move toward a small, shadowed corner of the factory, where a large iron kettle sits atop a low, burning stove. This is the communal area, a space where the rhythm of production slows down just enough for a breath of quiet. The air here is a little thinner, a little less saturated with the heavy scent of the dipping room. You find a spot on a long, dark wooden bench that has been polished by the countless workers who have rested here over the decades. You sit down slowly, feeling the muscles in your lower back release their tension. The wood is cool at first, but it quickly warms beneath you. You take a deep, slow breath, letting the stillness of the moment settle over you like a soft, heavy cloak. In your hands you hold a simple tin mug. It is a sturdy, unadorned object, its surface covered in a network of tiny scratches and a few small dents that tell the story of its long life. You watch as a colleague pours a stream of dark, steaming tea into the mug. There is no sound of splashing, only the visual of the dark liquid rising toward the brim, sending up a curling ribbon of white steam. The steam carries the earthy, comforting scent of black tea leaves, a smell that feels like a bridge to a world of domestic peace. You wrap your fingers around the metal. It is hot, nearly too hot to hold, but the warmth is a welcome contrast to the cooling air of the late afternoon. You let the heat seep into your palms, softening the calluses you've earned at the packing table. There is a mainstream historical fact that provides a backdrop to this quiet moment: the London Match Girls' strike of 1888. While that event is still years away, or perhaps just a whisper in the wind, the conditions that would lead to it are the very ones you live every day. The long hours and the meager pay are the foundation of this industry. Yet here, in the dim light of the tea break, those concerns feel distant. Historians still argue whether the eventual strike was primarily fueled by the horrifying health risks of white phosphorus, or if the catalyst was actually the unfair system of fines. Pennies taken from your wages for a dropped match or a messy station. For now, however, the only thing that matters is the temperature of the tea and the weight of the mug in your hands. You reach into the pocket of your apron and pull out a small piece of bread. It is, seconds, bread, slightly stale and a bit tough on the edges. But it is a treasure in this moment. You look at the texture of the crust, which is the color of a weathered oak tree. You break off a small piece, and the sound of the crust giving way is a soft, muffled snap. You dip the bread into the tea, watching as the liquid travels up the porous surface, turning the pale interior into a rich, golden brown. You wait a moment for it to soften, then eat it slowly. The taste is simple, grain and warmth, but it is profoundly satisfying. It is a slow, rhythmic act of nourishment that matches the slow, rhythmic beating of your heart. The light in the factory is fading now, the sun having dipped below the jagged horizon of London's rooftops. The high windows are no longer gray or orange. They are a deep, velvety indigo. In this shifting light, a strange and quirky phenomenon begins to manifest. You look down at your hands, resting against the dark fabric of your apron. In the shadows, the tips of your fingers and the small stains on your sleeves begin to emit a soft, ethereal glow. It is a pale, greenish, white light, like the glow of a distant star or a firefly in a summer meadow. This is the devil's light, the phosphorus on your skin reacting to the darkness. You find this glow fascinating rather than frightening. You move your hand through the air, watching as a faint, shimmering trail follows your movement. It is as if you are made of moonlight. You notice that the girl sitting across from you has a similar glow around her hairline and on the collar of her dress. In the quiet of the tea break, the room looks like it is filled with forest spirits rather than factory workers. It is a beautiful, eerie sight. A bit of accidental magic born from the chemicals of your trade. You let your gaze linger on the shimmer, feeling a sense of wonder that such a harsh job could produce such a delicate, ghostly beauty. The sound of the kettle on the stove is a constant low-frequency hum. It is a soothing sound, like a cat purring in a warm kitchen. You watch the orange embers of the fire through the small grate of the stove. They pulse with a slow, regular rhythm, brightening and then dimming in time with the draw of the chimney. You feel the radiant heat on your shins, a gentle pressure that encourages you to stay still, to stay quiet, to stay in this moment of rest. The world outside, the noise of the carriages, the shouting of the newsboys, the pressure of the city, feels like a dream that has no power over you here. You think about the tea itself. Historians have noted that for the Victorian working class, tea was more than just a drink. It was a vital source of hydration and a primary social lubricant. It was often the only hot thing a worker might consume all day. You savor the bitterness of the brew, the way it cleanses your palate of the metallic taste of the factory air. You take a slow sip, feeling the liquid move down your throat, spreading a line of warmth through the center of your chest. It is a grounding sensation, a reminder of your own physical presence in this massive industrial space. The Phossy jaw that people whisper about seems like a myth in this soft, glowing light. You know the stories, the aching teeth, the swelling, but in this moment of peace, your body feels strong and resilient. You choose to focus on the beauty of the phosphorescence rather than its potential cost. You watch a stray droplet of tea on the table. It, too, seems to catch a bit of the ambient glow, shimmering like a tiny, liquid emerald. You trace the outline of the drop with your glowing fingertip, creating a small, luminous smear on the wood. It is a silent, temporary piece of art, a mark of your existence in the shadows of the factory. There is a sense of deep, collective fatigue in the room. But it is not an unhappy fatigue. It is the tiredness of a shared journey. You look at the other girls. Some have their eyes closed, their heads leaning back against the brick wall. Others are staring blankly into their mugs, lost in their own quiet thoughts. No one is talking. The silence is a gift, a space where you don't have to be a worker, a daughter, or a citizen. You can just be a person, breathing in the scent of tea and wood smoke. The air remains still, and the shadows grow deeper, making the green glow of the phosphorus appear even brighter. You imagine the tea leaves growing on a sunny hillside in a land far across the ocean. You visualize the green bushes, the bright sun, and the hands that pick these leaves. It is a long journey from those sunny hills to this dim London factory. Yet here you are, connected to that distant world through this tin mug. You feel a sense of peace in this global connection. The world is large and full of wonders, even if your own corner of it is made of red bricks and phosphorus paste. You take another sip of the tea, letting the steam warm your nose and forehead. A quirky tidbit of the time was the belief that drinking milk could help protect Matchstick girls from the effects of the phosphorus. While the factory doesn't provide milk, some of the girls bring a small bottle to share. You watch as a splash of white is added to a mug nearby. The milk swirls into the dark tea, creating beautiful, cloud-like patterns before turning the drink a soft tan color. It is a small luxury, a tiny act of self-care in a demanding environment. You enjoy the visual of the swirling colors, a slow motion dance of liquids that mirrors the slow motion dance of your own thoughts. Historians still argue whether the factory owners' occasional provision of tea or bread was an act of genuine paternalistic care or a calculated move to ensure the workers had just enough energy to finish the day. To you, the motive is less important than the result. The bread is in your stomach, and the tea is in your hands. You feel a sense of gratitude for the simple fact of the break. It is a necessary pause in the long, rhythmic song of the factory. You let your shoulders drop even further, feeling the last bit of tension leave your body. You are completely relaxed, your mind floating in the sea of green light and warm steam. The fire in the stove begins to settle, the orange glow turning to a soft, dusty red. You know the break is coming to an end, but you don't feel any rush. You savor the final few drops of tea, tilting the mug back to get the last bit of warmth. The metal is cooler now, comfortable to the touch. You set the mug down on the bench beside you with a soft, dull sound. The silence of the room remains unbroken. You take one last look at your glowing hands, watching as the green light shimmers one final time before you stand up. As you rise, you feel the weight of your boots on the floor. You feel the strength in your legs and the steadiness of your breath. The tea and the bread have given you a fresh reservoir of quiet energy. You are ready to face the final hours of the day. You leave the communal area and walk back toward the main floor. The transition from the shadows to the dim factory light feeling natural and easy. The smell of phosphorus returns, but it no longer feels sharp. It feels familiar, like the scent of your own home. You walk past the long tables and the towering racks, your own glowing presence adding a tiny bit of light to the cavernous space. You feel like a part of the factory's architecture, a living, breathing element of this industrial landscape. The devil's light on your clothes makes you feel visible and invisible all at once. You are a matchstick girl, a bearer of the flame, a quiet worker in the heart of the night. You move with a slow, deliberate grace, your mind still anchored in the peace of the tea break. The shadows of the factory are long and complex, creating a labyrinth of dark and light. You navigate them with ease, your feet knowing the way without the need for thought. You think about the walk home that awaits you, the cool London air, and the soft bed that will eventually claim you. These thoughts are like distant stars, guiding you through the final tasks of the evening. You feel a sense of contentment, a quiet satisfaction in the simple rhythm of your life. The world is turning, the history is unfolding, and you are right here, a glowing figure in a world of shadows. You take a final, slow breath of the tea, scented air before the smell of the pine and phosphorus takes over again. You are settled. You are calm. You are ready. The quiet moment of shared tea has done its work, and you carry its peace with you as you move back into the flow of the factory. The history of the Matchstick Girl is a story of many things, but in this moment, it is a story of warmth, a story of light, and a story of a deep, sleepy harmony that transcends the hard reality of the work. You are exactly where you need to be, moving through the twilight of the day with a steady heart and a glowing spirit. The long, heavy rhythm of the factory finally begins to slow as the final whistle echoes through the tall, soot-stained halls. It is a sound that signals the end of your labor, but it doesn't bring a sudden rush of energy. Instead, you move with a quiet, practiced lethargy, gathering your few belongings and wrapping your thick wool shawl tightly around your shoulders. You step out of the heavy factory doors and back into the London night. The transition is immediate and sharp. The air outside is no longer the humid, phosphorus-scented weight of the dipping room. It is crisp, biting, and smells of the River Thames, a mixture of salt, cold mud, and the distant, metallic tang of coal smoke. You stand on the threshold for a moment, letting the cool air wash over your face, clearing away the lingering warmth of the drying stoves. The city of London at night is a world of deep, velvet shadows and sharp, flickering highlights. You begin your walk home, a journey of several miles that you know by heart. Your boots strike the damp cobblestones with a steady, muffled rhythm. There is a mainstream historical fact that often goes unmentioned in the grand stories of Victorian progress. Most factory girls in the East End walked upwards of 5 to 8 miles a day just to get to and from their place of work. This walk is not a chore to you. It is a period of transition, a slow winding down of the gears of your mind. You watch the way your breath blooms in the air, a soft, white cloud that vanishes almost as soon as it appears. As you move away from the industrial glow of the factory district, the streets become darker and the silence more profound. However, you are not entirely in darkness. You look down at your hands and the front of your dress. In the deep shadows of the narrow alleys, you are still glowing. The devil's light has not faded. If anything, it seems more vibrant against the pitch-black surroundings of the city. There is a quirky tidbit of history that suggests some matchstick girls were occasionally mistaken for ghosts, or will-o'-the wisps, by late-night travelers who were unfamiliar with the luminous properties of white phosphorus. You find a bit of gentle sarcasm in the thought. Being a supernatural entity for a few minutes a night is perhaps the most glamorous part of the job. You watch the pale green light shimmer on your sleeves, a ghostly companion that guides your steps through the gloom. The fog has returned, but it is different from the morning's pea-souper. It is thinner now, drifting in long, lazy ribbons between the buildings. It clings to the iron railings and the brick corners, turning the gaslights into soft, blurry orbs of amber. You pass a row of tall, narrow houses, their windows dark and silent. You think about the people inside, tucked away in their beds, unaware of the glowing girl walking past their door. Historians still argue whether this long walk home provided a much-needed mental decompression for the workers, allowing them to separate their industrial lives from their domestic ones, or if the sheer physical exhaustion made the journey a purely grueling necessity. To you, it feels like a bit of both. Your legs are tired, a dull, heavy ache that pulses with every step, but your mind feels lighter than it has all day. You turn a corner and the smell of the river becomes stronger. You are crossing a small stone bridge over a tidal creek. The water below is a dark, churning mystery, reflecting the orange glow of a distant warehouse lamp. You stop for a second, leaning your elbows on the cold stone of the bridge's parapet. You watch the water move. It is a slow, powerful force, completely indifferent to the clocks and whistles of the factory. You feel a sense of peace in that indifference. The river has been here long before the match factory, and it will be here long after. You take a slow, deep breath of the damp air, feeling the saltiness on your tongue. It is a refreshing change from the garlicky scent that has occupied your senses for the last 14 hours. The path leads you through a small market square, now empty and quiet. The wooden stalls are stripped bare, looking like skeletal remains in the moonlight. A few stray pieces of straw tumble across the stones, pushed by a light breeze. You hear the distant, lonely call of a foghorn from the docks, a low, mournful sound that vibrates through the air. It is a reminder of the vastness of the world outside of London, of the ships that carry your matches to the far corners of the earth. You imagine those boxes of matches stacked in dark holds, their little red heads waiting to be struck in some distant kitchen or camp. You feel a quiet connection to those future flames, a sense of pride that your long day of work has a purpose that reaches so far. As you continue walking, you notice the sounds of the night more clearly. The distant clatter of a hansom cab's wheels on a main road, the soft rustle of a cat darting under a doorway, the rhythmic creak of a sign hanging from a pub. These are the songs of the city at rest. You find yourself matching your pace to the rhythm of these sounds, your movements becoming more fluid and less forced. The devil's dust on your shawl catches a stray beam of light from a high window, sparkling for a brief second like diamonds. It is a strange beauty, this industrial residue, and you let yourself enjoy the sight without thinking of the cost. You pass a small church, its stone walls dark and imposing. The graveyard beside it is a place of absolute stillness. You look at the weathered headstones, some leaning at odd angles, as if they are tired of standing up. You feel a kinship with the stones. You are both part of the history of this city, silent witnesses to the passing of time. You think about the luminous girls who came before you, their stories etched into the air of the East End. You are not just a worker, you are a link in a long, glowing chain of women who have kept the lights of London burning. This thought gives you a quiet strength, a sense of belonging in a world that can sometimes feel cold and impersonal. The streets begin to narrow as you approach your own neighborhood. The buildings here lean in toward each other, their eaves almost touching overhead. The air is warmer here, held in by the close, packed bricks. You smell the familiar sense of home, stewing onions, old wood, and the faint, sweet smell of a nearby bakery starting its nightly preparations. You feel a surge of quiet anticipation. The long day is almost over. You reach the door of your lodging house, a heavy wooden door with a brass handle that has been worn smooth by 1,000 hands. You pause for a second, looking back at the street one last time. The green glow on your hands is fading slightly as you stand under the pale yellow light of a street lamp. It is as if the city's light is reclaiming you, washing away the factory's mark. You touch the cold metal of the handle, and the sensation is grounding. You are no longer the matchstick girl in the dipping room. You are a person returning to their own small corner of the world. You turn the handle and step inside. The hallway is dark and smells of floor wax and damp wool. You climb the stairs, the wood creaking softly under your feet. It is a familiar, comforting sound, a series of notes that tell you that you are safe. You reach your room and step inside. It is small, but it is yours. The moonlight filters through the window, casting long, silver rectangles across the floor. You don't light a candle yet. You enjoy the darkness for a moment, watching as the phosphorus on your clothes creates a faint, emerald aura in the room. It is your own private light, a secret glow that belongs only to you. You sit on the edge of your bed, feeling the softness of the mattress. You slowly unlace your boots, the leather feeling stiff and cold. When you pull them off, the relief is immediate. You wiggle your toes, feeling the blood return to your feet. You lie back on the bed, still dressed, and look up at the ceiling. The shadows move slowly as the moon travels across the sky. You feel the weight of your body sinking into the bed, a deep, heavy relaxation that starts at your toes and moves all the way up to your head. The rhythm of the day, the dipping, the drying, the packing, the walking, is still there, but it is fading, becoming a distant echo. You are drifting in the space between the factory and the dream world. Historians still argue whether the dream lives of the Victorian working class were more vibrant than their waking ones, as a form of psychological escape. For you, the dreams are starting now. You imagine the factory as a large, sleeping beast, its fires turned low and its halls empty. You see the vats of red paste standing still and silent, the phosphorus waiting for the morning to begin its glow again. You feel a sense of harmony with the machinery and the materials. You are all resting together. The air in your room is cool and still, and you pull your shawl up to your chin. It is soft and smells of the night air you just walked through. You breathe in slowly, the scent of the Thames and the coal smoke, now a pleasant memory. The city outside is quiet. The last of the cabs has passed, and even the foghorns have fallen silent. There is only the sound of your own breathing, a slow, steady rhythm that matches the turning of the earth. You are the Matchstick girl, and you have completed your journey through the shadows. You have carried the light through the day and brought it home to rest. You feel a deep sense of contentment, a quiet satisfaction that you have done your part. The devil's light on your skin is almost gone now, replaced by the silver light of the moon. You close your eyes, and the darkness is warm and inviting. You feel yourself slipping further and further away from the physical world. The aches in your body are gone, replaced by a weightless sensation of floating. You are a leaf on the river, a mote of dust in a sunbeam, a spark in the dark. You are everything and nothing all at once. The history of the Matchstick girl is a long and complex one, but your part in it for today is finished. You have worked, you have walked, and now you are ready to sleep. The world continues to turn. The history continues to unfold, but you are tucked away in your small room, safe and warm. You let the last remnants of the day's rhythm carry you into a deep, dreamless sleep. You are at peace. You are settled. You are home. The walk back home was long, but it has led you exactly where you needed to be, to this moment of perfect, quiet stillness in the heart of the London night. The silver light of the moon continues to trace its slow, silent path across your small room. You are still lying on your back, the thin mattress beneath you feeling as soft as a cloud after the long hours spent standing on the factory floor. The air in the room is perfectly still, and the distant sounds of London have faded into a faint, oceanic hum. You watch the last of the phosphorescent glow on your fingertips. It is becoming dimmer and dimmer, like a candle that has almost reached the end of its wick. You feel a profound sense of lightness. The physical weight of the day, the heavy frames, the thousands of matchboxes, the miles of cobblestones, is lifting away, leaving only a calm, rhythmic pulse in your veins. Your thoughts begin to drift toward the future, toward the stories you have heard whispered in the tea room and on the long walks home. There is talk of a new kind of match, a safety match, that doesn't use the glowing white phosphorus that coats your skin. These new matches are said to use something called red phosphorus, a substance that is stable and kind to the hands of those who handle it. There is a mainstream historical fact that brings a sense of hope to your reflections. In 1891, the Salvation Army opened its own match factory in Old Ford, East London, specifically to prove that matches could be made safely and that workers could be paid a fair wage. You imagine that factory, a place where the air might be clear and the devil's light is replaced by the simple, honest light of the sun. Historians still argue whether the eventual shift to these safer materials was driven by a genuine humanitarian awakening among the factory owners, or if it was a cold, strategic calculation to avoid the rising tide of labor strikes and public boycotts. From where you lie, the why matters less than the what. You imagine a world where the girls who follow in your footsteps don't have to carry the green shimmer home on their clothes. You see a vision of a brighter, cleaner industry, where the tools of fire are made without the risk of shadow. This dream of change is like a warm ember in your mind, providing a gentle, internal glow that replaces the fading chemicals on your skin. You find yourself thinking about the matches themselves, the ones you spent all day packing into those colorful boxes. Before these modern conveniences, the early versions of friction matches were quite different. There is a quirky tidbit of history regarding the lucifer matches that were popular before the safety match took over. These early matches were notorious for their loud, sharp crackle and the way they showered sparks in every direction when struck. Some people found them so antisocial and startling that they were banned from certain public places. You smile at the thought of a tiny stick of wood causing such a commotion. Compared to those explosive lucifers, the matches you make today are quiet and predictable, a humble improvement in a long history of human invention. You close your eyes, but the images of the day continue to play behind your eyelids in slow motion. You see the vats of red paste, the towering drying racks, and the mountains of tiny wooden splints. But they look different now. They are softened by the haze of your impending sleep. The factory is no longer a place of noise and heat, but a vast, silent cathedral of industry. The machinery moves with the grace of a clock's internal gears, ticking away the seconds of history. You feel a sense of harmony with this process. You are a part of the story of light, a quiet narrator in a tale that spans centuries. You are the link between the dark, cold nights of the past and the bright, safe homes of the future. The rhythm of your breathing has slowed to a deep, steady crawl. Your heart beats with a calm, heavy thud, echoing the sound of a distant drum. You are drifting further and further away from the city of London. The buildings and the streets are dissolving into a mist of silver and grey. You are no longer defined by your work or your surroundings. You are simply a consciousness floating in a sea of quiet. The peace of the night is absolute. There is no tomorrow to worry about, no yesterday to regret. There is only this perfect, suspended moment of transition. You think about the lights in darkest England, the name given to the safer matches produced by those who wanted to change your world. It is a beautiful phrase, a poetic way to describe the simple act of making a better tool. You feel like a light yourself, a small, steady flame that has done its work and is now ready to rest. The history of the Matchstick Girl is a heavy one, filled with struggle and endurance, but it is also a story of persistence. You have persisted. You have navigated the shadows and the glow, and you have found your way to this quiet room. You are a victor in your own silent way. The moonlight has moved now, leaving your bed in deep shadow. You don't mind the darkness. It feels like a soft, velvet embrace. You pull the blanket closer to your chin, feeling the coarse texture of the wool against your skin. It is a grounding sensation, a final tether to the physical world before you let go. You listen to the silence once more. It is not an empty silence, but a full one, packed with the echoes of the day and the whispers of history. You are settling into the very core of your being, a place of profound and unshakable calm. The world outside continues its slow, inevitable turn. The river Thames flows toward the sea, the stars move across the heavens, and the city of London breathes in its sleep. But for you, the world has stopped. You are in a place of timelessness, a sanctuary of rest that no factory whistle can reach. You have mastered the rhythm of the day, and now you are mastering the rhythm of the night. You are the Matchstick Girl, the dreamer of safer lights, the quiet inhabitant of the silver moonbeams. You are at peace. The day has finally folded into itself, leaving behind the soft, hushed remnants of a story well told. You are drifting now, the edges of your thoughts blurring like ink on damp paper. The room is a sanctuary of stillness, a place where time has no meaning, and the only thing that exists is the gentle, rhythmic rise and fall of your chest. The sounds of the world have retreated to a great distance, becoming nothing more than a faint, soothing hum that vibrates at the very edge of your awareness. You are safe, you are warm, and you are completely, wonderfully tired. The heavy blankets feel like a protective layer, shielding you from the cares of the waking world. Your muscles have let go of their last bits of tension, sinking deep into the mattress, as if you are becoming a part of the bed itself. The air you breathe is cool and clean, filling your lungs with a quiet energy that slowly dissipates into a state of total relaxation. You feel a sense of profound gratitude for this moment, for the simple luxury of a quiet room and a soft place to rest. The long walk home, the glowing phosphorus, and the busy factory are all memories now, distant stars in the galaxy of your mind. You are slipping into the deep, dark waters of sleep. It is a slow, graceful descent, like a leaf falling through the still air of an autumn forest. There is no rush, no destination, only the process of letting go. You are floating on a sea of tranquility, the waves of rest washing over you in slow, rhythmic pulses. Your mind is a blank canvas, ready for the gentle brushstrokes of dreams. You are no longer the matchstick girl. You are a soul at rest, a traveler who has reached the end of a long journey. The history of the world continues without you for a while, and that is perfectly okay. You have done your part, and now it is time to simply be. The darkness is your friend, a soft curtain that has been drawn across the windows of your soul. You embrace it, feeling the weight of your eyelids finally become too much to bear. You let them close, and the world vanishes, replaced by a warm, inviting void. You are settled. You are calm. You are home. The stories of the past and the dreams of the future meet in this silent space, creating a harmony that is uniquely yours. Sleep now. Let the world turn, and let the quiet strength of the night carry you into the deep, peaceful embrace of a dreamless rest.